Hello everyone, welcome to the Chapter 50 review of Kagurabachi, Interception. The chapter starts with a small flashback of earlier on the train when Chihiro is talking to Hikari. He reflects on some of his father's past words about how he wasn't the real hero of the war, and it was actually the blade wielders, which he says he stated to him about 100 times. It then cuts to Hikari and Urahara on the train after Chihiro had jumped out of the train with Hirohiko. They note that they need to get to the temple as fast as possible to make sure that Urahara will be in safe hands. We then cut to two Kabanabi soldiers, one who seems to be sketching a graph on the floor, and the other noting about how terrifying it is that they infiltrated the bathhouse. Urahara and Hikari then exit the train, meeting with the two, and Urahara notes that they're the two from Misumi. They also say that Mr. Samura is waiting for them. After that brief conversation, they all get teleported to the temple, which seems to be very high up and next to a cliff. We then finally get our first look at Mr. Samura, who is in fact the blind swords bearer that we've been seeing for a while now. Then we get a funny moment where Mr. Samura runs over to Hikari thinking it's Chihiro due to him smelling like him, and then putting his entire palm over Hikari's face until Hikari screams off that he's Chihiro's friend. We then get a flashback back to when he was a kid and he went out with Shiba and ended up meeting one of the sword bearers who instantly recognizes Chihiro as Kunishigi's son due to him smelling exactly like Kunishigi. And when Chihiro says that his father calls them the heroes, Mr. Samura just notes that his father is the real hero and all he did was just wield the sword. Mr. Samura is then able to note that there's people surrounding the temple with Dentenseki, and we also get a look at another guy who seems to be a monk and has some sort of tattoo along his neck. So maybe he's like someone who's a similar level to Mr. Samura, which would be really cool to have two fighters like that. And as they prepare to start a counterattack, Mr. Samura tells Urahara that he needs to rest, which I'm assuming he's noticing his mental state after seeing what happened to the Kabanabi group that had been protecting him for years. We then cut to Hikari lying down on a bed next to the Kabanabi woman we saw before that teleported them in. So I'm assuming she has some sort of sorcery that heals you, maybe something like Char, but obviously not to that level where it's just like fully regrowing limbs. We then cut back to the battle between Chihiro and Hirohiko, where Hirohiko doesn't really seem to be fighting, so I'm assuming right now Chihiro is just getting teamed up on by all the Dentenseki troops. But I'm sure next chapter we're gonna get cuts between his battle against the Hishaku and Mr. Samura and his battle while protecting the temple. And in the last 3 pages, we get some notes from Urahara stating that Mr. Samura is far stronger than him. Even though he just has a regular sword, he's fully confident that he's going to be able to protect this temple. And the last thing we're told in this chapter is it's going to take 30 minutes for Hikari's sorcery recovery. So after that 30 minutes, we'll get to see Mr. Samura with his blade back and supposedly Urahara as well. But I have a feeling that's not going to go as to plan, because it feels like things have been going a little too smoothingly so far. So overall, I give this chapter like a solid 10 out of 10. It gave me a great idea of who Mr. Samura is as a person and what role I think he's going to play throughout the story. Also, I now know what Chihiro is going to be going throughout this arc, and have a good idea of what Hikari's group is going to be going through as well. So let me know if you guys liked the video, subscribe, and keep your eye out for my next video, which is going to be Daruma versus Kaizane, if I ever manage to get this out without failing a college course.